The stars looked peaceful from the observation deck of the TDS horizon. Commander Daniel Hayes stood there, watching the distant lights twinkle against the black void of space. He had been doing this job for 8 years now, and nothing exciting had ever happened. That was about to change. His communications officer, Karen Webb, called out from her station. Her voice carried an edge of worry that made Daniel turn around quickly. She was staring at her screen, her fingers moving across the controls as she tried to make sense of what she was seeing. "Commander, we have multiple contacts entering the system. They just appeared on our sensors. I count 70 ships, maybe more. They are not broadcasting any identification codes." Daniel moved to her station and looked at the display. The signatures were unlike anything in their database. These ships were big, much bigger than anything humanity had built. They moved in perfect formation, like a school of fish or a flock of birds. There was something threatening about their precision. "Try to hail them," Daniel said. "Standard first contact protocols. Let them know we come in peace." Karen sent out the message in multiple languages and formats. They waited. The alien fleet continued its approach toward the human colonies. No response came. Daniel felt a cold weight settling in his stomach. This did not feel like a friendly visit. Finally, after 20 minutes of silence, the aliens responded. The voice that came through the speakers was harsh and mechanical, translated by some kind of universal system. The words were simple and terrifying. "Primitive species. You occupy territory claimed by the Vraxel Dominion. You will surrender all worlds in this sector within 10 rotations of your nearest star. Refuse and your species will be eliminated. This is not negotiation. This is fact." The channel closed before Daniel could respond. He looked around at his crew. Tactical Officer Lisa Morgan was already running combat calculations. Chief Engineer Paul Henderson was checking their defensive systems. Everyone knew what this meant. Humanity was facing its first real alien contact, and it was hostile. Daniel opened a priority channel to Earth Command. Admiral Richard Stone appeared on the screen within seconds. The Admiral was an older man with gray hair and hard eyes that had seen too many difficult decisions. He listened as Daniel reported the situation. "Pull back to the outer marker," Stone ordered. "Do not engage. We need to assess their capabilities before we make any moves. I'm convening an emergency council session. This is bigger than any of us." The horizon began its retreat, but they kept their sensors focused on the alien fleet. The Vraxel were not waiting. They moved toward the nearest human installation, an automated mining station called Outpost 7. The station had no crew, just machines and robots processing asteroids for valuable minerals. The Vraxel opened fire without warning. Their weapons were brutally efficient. Beams of purple energy tore through the station's structure, melting metal and shattering rock. Within 3 minutes, Outpost 7 was nothing but debris floating in space. The message was clear. The Vraxel were not making empty threats. On the colony world of New Terra, Governor Helen Burke received the news with a mix of fear and determination. She had 15,000 people under her protection. Most of them were farmers, scientists, and families who had come to this world looking for a fresh start. Now they were in the crosshairs of an alien empire. Helen activated the emergency broadcast system. Her voice reached every home and workplace on the planet. She spoke calmly, but everyone could hear the seriousness in her words. "This is not a drill. All civilians are to report to evacuation centers immediately. Bring only essential items. Transport ships are already being prepared. We have drills for this. Follow the procedures and we will get through this together." Back on Earth, the Unified Earth Council gathered in a secure bunker deep beneath Geneva. Representatives from every major nation and colony sat around a massive table. Holographic displays showed the Vraxel fleet's movements and projected attack patterns. The mood was grim. Ambassador Gregory Pierce spoke first. He was a career diplomat who believed that every conflict could be solved through conversation. His voice was steady, but his hands shook slightly as he gestured at the displays. "We must attempt further communication. Perhaps we misunderstood their initial message. No rational species would demand total surrender without at least attempting negotiation. We should send a delegation, offer them trade agreements, technology sharing, anything to avoid war." Defense Minister Claire Sutton cut him off. She was a former military officer who had seen combat during the Martian independence crisis 20 years earlier. She understood violence in a way that diplomats never could. "They destroyed an unmanned station to prove they are serious. This is not a species interested in trade. They see us as primitive, squatting on valuable real estate. If we show weakness now, they will take everything. We need to show them that attacking humanity comes with a price. The argument went back and forth for hours. Some council members suggested immediate surrender to save lives. Others wanted to fight but worried that humanity's small defense fleet would be crushed. Nobody had a good answer because nobody had expected this. Admiral Stone sat quietly through most of the debate. Finally, he raised his hand and everyone fell silent. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of someone who understood exactly what was at stake. We have a decision to make, and we have very little time to make it. The Vraxil see us as weak. They think we are easy prey. What they do not know is that we have been preparing for this scenario for decades. We have assets they cannot detect and capabilities we have never revealed. But using them means showing the galaxy what humanity is really capable of. Once we open that door, we cannot close it again. The room fell silent. Everyone understood what Stone was implying. Humanity had secrets, military secrets that even most government officials did not know about. The public fleet, the ships that everyone could see, was just the surface. Beneath that surface was something much more dangerous. Commander Daniel Hayes continued monitoring the Vraxil fleet from his safe distance. They were spreading out now, moving toward multiple human colonies simultaneously. This was not just an attack on one target. This was the beginning of a systematic conquest. His crew watched the displays with growing anger. These aliens thought they could just roll over humanity without consequences. Lisa Morgan looked up from her tactical station. Her voice was quiet but fierce. "Commander, when do we stop running and start fighting?" Daniel did not have an answer yet, but he knew that answer was coming soon. The Vraxil had made a terrible mistake. They had threatened humanity's children, their colonies, their future. They were about to learn that humans could be very polite, very civilized, and very peaceful. Right up until the moment they decided not to be. The first shots of the war had been fired. What came next would reshape the galaxy forever. The agricultural colony of Eden Prime was beautiful from orbit. Green fields stretched across the valleys and small towns dotted the landscape like jewels. 200,000 people called this place home. They grew food that fed a dozen other colonies. Now the Vraxil were coming for them. Governor Marcus Webb stood in the planetary command center, coordinating the evacuation. Transport ships were landing in every major settlement, loading families and their few possessions. The process was orderly but desperately slow. They needed more time. Time they did not have. Captain Amy Rodriguez commanded the TDS Guardian, one of the few proper military vessels in the sector. Her ship was designed for patrol duty and customs enforcement, not combat against a superior alien fleet, but she had her orders. Buy time for the civilians, whatever the cost. Amy watched 3 Vraxil destroyers enter orbit above Eden Prime. Each one was twice the size of her ship. Their weapon systems powered up, targeting the population centers below. She could not let them fire. All power to forward shields, she ordered. Target the lead ship and prepare to ram if necessary. If they want this planet, they will have to go through us first. Her crew moved with practiced efficiency. They were scared but determined. The Guardian accelerated toward the Vraxil formation, firing its relatively small plasma cannons. The shots splashed harmlessly against the alien shields, but they got their attention. The 3 destroyers turned to face this unexpected challenger. The battle was brutal and short. The Guardian took hit after hit, her shields collapsing under the onslaught. Amy maneuvered desperately, using every trick she knew. She emptied the cargo bay, launching containers full of mining equipment and supplies into the path of enemy fire. Some of the containers contained volatile chemicals. When hit, they exploded, momentarily disrupting the Vraxil targeting systems. Ramming speed, Amy ordered, when her weapons were exhausted and her ship was falling apart around her. Aim for their reactor signatures. The Guardian, bleeding atmosphere and on fire, slammed into the lead Vraxil destroyer. The impact was catastrophic for both ships. The destroyer's shields had been down for repairs. The collision breached its reactor core. The explosion lit up the sky like a second sun. Amy and most of her crew made it to the escape pods. They watched from their small lifeboats as the remaining 2 Vraxil ships retreated from orbit. The Guardian's sacrifice had given the evacuation fleet the time it needed. 30,000 more people escaped because of her decision, but the cost was high. 47 crew members died in the collision. Back on Earth, in a facility known only as Deep Iron, Admiral Richard Stone gathered a select group of people. The facility was buried 3 miles beneath the Rocky Mountains. Its existence was classified at the highest levels. What happened in this room would determine humanity's fate. Dr. Nathan Cross presented his briefing with calm professionalism, but his words were terrifying. He displayed weapons systems that most people believed were impossible. Quantum disruption cannons that could tear molecules apart. Antimatter missiles with yields that made nuclear weapons look like firecrackers. Stealth ships that could hide inside a star's corona. These are just the conventional systems, Nathan said. We have experimental weapons that are significantly more destructive. Some of them we built hoping we would never need to use them. Some of them were developed during the darkest days of World War III, and then hidden away because we were ashamed of what we had created. General Kevin Martinez spoke next. He was the commander of a military force that officially did not exist. The Shadow Fleet. 240 warships built in secret over 30 years. Each one incorporated technology decades ahead of the public fleet. The crews trained in isolated facilities preparing for a threat that many hoped would never come. We can deploy within 48 hours, Kevin said, but once we do, there is no putting this genie back in the bottle. Every species in the galaxy will know that humanity has been hiding its true strength. That will have consequences we cannot predict. Defense Minister Claire Sutton looked around the room. The Vraxel are destroying our colonies. They killed Captain Rodriguez and her crew. How many more people have to die before we stop worrying about what aliens we have never met might think about us? Ambassador Gregory Pierce still argued for restraint. If we deploy these weapons, we become the monsters. We become the aggressive species that the rest of the galaxy should fear. There has to be another way. Admiral Stone made the final call. We will give the Vraxel one clear warning. We will tell them exactly what we are capable of, and give them a chance to withdraw. If they continue attacking after that, then we unleash everything. The blood will be on their hands, not ours. Commander Daniel Hayes received his new orders with a mix of relief and dread. The Horizon, now repaired and upgraded with some of the previously classified technology, would approach the Vraxel fleet under a flag of truce. Daniel would deliver humanity's ultimatum directly to their commander. The Vraxel War Master was named Kelthros. He commanded from a massive battleship at the center of his fleet. When Daniel's message came through, Kelthros listened with amusement. Another primitive species making desperate threats. He had heard it all before from 19 other conquered civilizations. Daniel spoke clearly and without emotion. War Master Kelthros, this is your only warning. Humanity has been operating under strict rules of engagement designed to minimize casualties on all sides. We have been polite. We have been restrained. That ends now. Withdraw your forces from human space immediately, or we will stop pretending to be civilized. Kelthros laughed. It was a harsh, grating sound that made Daniel's crew uncomfortable. The War Master had been fighting wars for 60 years. He had destroyed species far more advanced than these humans appeared to be. Their threats meant nothing. Destroy that ship, Kelthros ordered. Make it slow. Let them watch their systems fail one by one. Let them regret their arrogance. 3 Vraxel cruisers opened fire on the horizon. Daniel tried to escape, but the firepower was overwhelming. His shields collapsed. Hull breaches opened across multiple decks. The ship began to spin out of control as the maneuvering thrusters were destroyed. Karen Webb managed to get off one final transmission before the communications array exploded. Just 3 words, but they changed everything. They refused. Broken Arrow. Broken Arrow was the code phrase. The authorization to deploy the Shadow Fleet. The order to stop holding back. Deep in the Kuiper Belt, beyond the orbit of Pluto, hundreds of massive ships began powering up their reactors. Crews who had trained for decades in secret moved to their battle stations. Weapon systems came online, weapons that the galaxy had never seen before. Admiral Stone sat in the command center of the TDS Retribution, a ship so powerful it could fight an entire fleet by itself. Around him, the other ships of the Shadow Fleet formed up in perfect formation. They began their burn toward the inner system, toward the Vraxel invaders. All ships, Stone transmitted on the command channel. We gave them a chance for peace. They chose violence. Now we show them what humanity is really capable of. Remember your training. Remember what we are fighting for. And remember that once this starts, there is no going back. Execute Operation Thunderstrike. 240 warships vanished from sensors as their stealth systems activated. They crossed the solar system like ghosts. invisible to the Vraxel scanners. The aliens had no idea what was coming for them. On New Terra, Governor Helen Burke watched the night sky. She could see the flashes in orbit where Vraxel ships were bombarding defensive satellites. Her people huddled in shelters, terrified and praying for rescue. She received a coded transmission from Earth Command. Just 2 words: "Help coming." Helen allowed herself a small smile. She did not know exactly what was coming, but she had heard rumors, stories about secret projects and hidden fleets. She had always assumed they were just stories. Now she hoped they were real. The Vraxel were about to find out that humanity's polite exterior hid something much more dangerous underneath. War Master Kelthros reviewed his tactical displays with satisfaction. The human colonies were falling one by one. Resistance was minimal. A few brave but foolish ships tried to fight back, but they were easily destroyed. In another week, perhaps 2, humanity would surrender. Then the real work would begin, stripping these worlds of resources and enslaving any survivors. His sensor officer suddenly looked up from his station, confusion on his face. "War Master, I'm detecting multiple new contacts. They are appearing on our sensors all at once. I count dozens of ships, maybe more. They are much larger than the human vessels we have encountered so far." Kelthros moved to examine the display himself. This made no sense. Where had these ships come from? Humans did not have vessels this size. Their largest warships were barely the size of a Vraxel corvette. These new contacts were massive, some matching the size of his own battleship. "Identify them," he ordered. "Are they reinforcements from another human faction?" Before his officer could respond, the new ships opened fire. Kelthros watched in shock as 3 of his cruisers simply disintegrated. Not exploded, not damaged. They just came apart at the molecular level, breaking down into clouds of atoms and debris. The weapons that did this were unlike anything in Vraxel experience. Captain Jake Morrison commanded the TDS Retribution, the flagship of the Shadow Fleet. His ship was equipped with quantum disruption cannons, weapons that operated on principles most species had not even discovered yet. When fired, they created a field that severed the molecular bonds holding matter together. Shields were useless against them because shields operated on different physics entirely. "Target the next cluster," Jake ordered calmly. "Fire when ready. Show them what we can do." The Retribution fired again. 3 more Vraxil ships dissolved into atomic dust. Around the flagship, the rest of the Shadow Fleet emerged from stealth and opened fire with their own advanced weapons. The battle quickly turned into a slaughter. Lieutenant Commander Sharon Price led a squadron of stealth fighters deeper into the Vraxil formation. Her ships were small but packed with antimatter charges. They moved through the enemy fleet completely undetected, their stealth systems making them invisible to every sensor the Vraxil had. Sharon and her pilots attached the charges to the hulls of 6 Vraxil battleships. The placement was precise, targeting reactor cores and command centers. Then they withdrew to a safe distance. "Detonate," Sharon ordered. 6 massive explosions lit up the void of space. The Vraxil battleships were torn apart from within, their reactors catastrophically failing. Thousands of alien crew members died in seconds. The Vraxil formation began to break apart as panic spread through their ranks. Tactical Officer Henry Cooper coordinated the assault from the command ship. He was a genius at spatial warfare, able to see patterns and opportunities that others missed. He directed human forces to hit specific targets, creating cascading failures throughout the enemy fleet. "Eliminate their command vessels first," Henry directed. "Leave the support ships intact. We want them to see what happens when they threaten humanity. We want survivors who can report back to their government." The strategy worked perfectly. Within an hour, the Vraxil fleet was in complete disarray. Their command structure had been decapitated. Individual ships tried to fight back, but they were isolated and overwhelmed. The humans moved with brutal efficiency, destroying any ship that continued to show hostile intent. On Eden Prime, the ground war was going differently now. Colonel Lisa Hayes led a Marine assault force that dropped from orbit using advanced powered armor. The armor made each soldier stronger, faster, and nearly invulnerable to the weapons the Vraxil ground troops carried. Lisa and her Marines hit the Vraxil landing zones like a hammer. They moved through enemy positions with terrifying speed. Their weapons fired superheated plasma that could punch through the heaviest Vraxil armor. Within hours, they had pushed the aliens back to their dropships. The Vraxil ground commander tried to rally his troops, but they were demoralized and terrified. These humans were not the weak primitives they had been told to expect. They were armored warriors who fought with both skill and fury. The Vraxil began to retreat. "Do not let them escape," Lisa ordered. "I want every enemy soldier off this planet within the next 24 hours. Use non-lethal force where possible, but anyone who resists dies." Back in space, War Master Kelthros was experiencing something he had never felt before in his long military career. Fear. His fleet of 70 ships had been reduced to less than 30 functional vessels in just a few hours. The humans had technology that should not exist, weapons that ignored shields, ships that could not be detected, tactics that predicted his every move. He tried to contact the Dominion High Command, but human electronic warfare systems jammed his communications. He was isolated, cut off, and dying by degrees. His bridge crew looked to him for orders, but he had none to give. Everything he knew about warfare had been rendered obsolete in a single afternoon. Admiral Stone opened a communication channel to the surviving Vraxil ships. His image appeared on their displays, and his voice was hard and unforgiving. "War Master Kelthros, you were warned. You were given a chance to withdraw peacefully. You chose violence. Now you see the consequences. Humanity does not want war, but we are very, very good at it when we must be. You have one opportunity to save what remains of your fleet. Withdraw from human space immediately. Take your ships and leave. Tell your government what you found here. Tell them that attacking Earth was the worst mistake your species has ever made." Kelthros stared at the human admiral's face. He had built his career on strength and conquest. Retreating was shameful, possibly fatal to his career. But continuing to fight meant certain death. He had never faced such a choice before. Before he could formulate a response, his sensor officer cried out in alarm. "War Master, new contacts. Much larger fleet emerging from faster-than-light travel. It is the Grand Armada. The High Command has sent reinforcements." Kelthros felt a mix of relief and dread. The Grand Armada consisted of 200 warships, the pride of the Vraxil military. Supreme War Master Dravok commanded it personally. He was the most decorated officer in Dominion history. But if these humans could destroy 70 ships so easily, what would happen when they faced 200? Admiral Stone saw the new contacts appear on his sensors. He had hoped to end this quickly, to show overwhelming force and then offer generous terms. Now the situation had escalated again. He opened a secure channel to Earth Command. "Sir, the Vraxil have brought their main fleet. We are outnumbered 2-1 now. Requesting authorization to deploy additional assets." The response came quickly. "Authorized. Activate Project Nightfall. Show them everything." Stone turned to his operations officer. "Send the activation codes. Bring all hidden assets online. No more holding back." Throughout the combat zone, what appeared to be ordinary navigation beacons and communication relays suddenly transformed. Panels opened to reveal massive weapon systems. These platforms had been placed in orbit around human colonies years ago, disguised as civilian infrastructure. Now they revealed their true purpose. Dr. Nathan Cross had designed Project Nightfall after studying ancient human warfare. The idea was simple. Make your enemy think they know where all your weapons are. Then surprise them with weapons hidden in plain sight. The Vraxil had been maneuvering through a weapons grid without knowing it. The approaching Grand Armada had no idea what they were flying into. Supreme War Master Dravok was confident and aggressive. He had crushed 30 alien civilizations in his career. These humans would be just another conquest, albeit one that had gotten lucky against Kelthros's incompetent command. "All ships, attack formation," Dravok ordered. "We will show these primitives what real military power looks like. Prepare to engage on my mark." His fleet accelerated toward the human positions. They outnumbered the defenders, and their ships were powerful. Dravok expected an easy victory. He was wrong. The hidden weapons platforms activated simultaneously. Directed energy beams lanced out across vast distances, targeting the approaching Vraxil fleet with inhuman precision. The beams used quantum entanglement for targeting, making them impossible to evade or jam. They struck with devastating accuracy. Dravok watched in horror as his forward elements began taking catastrophic damage. Ships exploded or simply stopped functioning as their systems were overwhelmed. He had flown into a trap. These humans had been waiting for him. They had prepared this entire battlefield in advance. The battle that followed would be remembered as the Reckoning of Proxima. It lasted 4 hours and 11 minutes. In that time, the galaxy learned a terrible truth about humanity. They were not primitive. They were not weak. They had been holding back. Supreme War Master Dravok tried to rally his forces, but the humans had thought of everything. His communications were jammed or intercepted. His sensor readings were corrupted by electronic warfare systems beyond his understanding. Ships that should have been hidden were revealed, while human vessels vanished from his screens entirely. Captain Jake Morrison pushed the Retribution deep into the Vraxil formation. His ship was a monster, bristling with weapons that should not have been possible. The quantum disruption cannons fired again and again, each shot erasing a Vraxil vessel from existence. His crew worked with practiced efficiency, calling out targets and adjusting fire patterns. "Concentrate fire on their heavy units," Jake ordered. "Break their backbone and the rest will collapse." Around the Retribution, dozens of other Shadow Fleet vessels pushed forward. They moved in coordinated groups, covering each other's approaches and creating overlapping fields of fire. The Vraxil tried to respond, but their tactics were outdated, designed for fighting enemies with similar technology. Against humanity's advanced systems, those tactics were worse than useless. Commander Sarah Walsh directed a swarm of autonomous attack drones from her command ship. Each drone was small, barely 3 meters long, but carried a tiny antimatter warhead. She had 10,000 of them, and they moved like a living cloud through the battlefield. The drones overwhelmed Vraxil point defense systems through sheer numbers. Hundreds were destroyed, but thousands more got through. They attached themselves to enemy hulls and detonated simultaneously. The effect was like watching fireworks, beautiful and terrible. Vraxil ships were torn apart, their armor and shields stripped away before heavier human weapons finished them off. Lieutenant Tyler Grant piloted something called the Horizon Breaker. It was not really a ship in the traditional sense. It was a weapons platform built around a single massive cannon that took up most of its internal volume. The cannon fired coherent beams of antimatter, concentrated streams of destruction that could punch through anything. Each shot required charging the entire ship's power systems. It took 3 minutes between shots, and the energy discharge was so intense that the ship glowed white-hot. But each shot destroyed a capital ship in a single hit. Tyler had eliminated 6 Vraxil dreadnoughts before his cooling system started to fail. "Taking us out of the line," Tyler reported. "Reactor temperature is approaching critical. We need 20 minutes to cool down." "Good work, Horizon Breaker," Admiral Stone replied. "Fall back and recover. You have earned it." The Vraxil were desperate now. They tried ramming attacks, throwing their ships at human vessels in suicide runs. Some succeeded, damaging or destroying a few human warships. But for every human ship lost, 10 Vraxil vessels were eliminated. The mathematics of the battle were brutal and clear. Then the Vraxil made their fatal mistake. Unable to win the space battle, they turned their weapons on the human colonies themselves. Bombardment beams lanced down from orbit, targeting cities and settlements. It was a last attempt to force a surrender by threatening civilians. General Kevin Martinez was waiting for this. He had predicted the Vraxil would eventually resort to attacking soft targets. He had prepared a response. All units, Standing Order 7 is now active. Unrestricted warfare protocols are authorized. No more mercy. No more restraint. End this. Standing Order 7 meant humanity stopped pretending to fight fair. Weapons that had been held in reserve, things too terrible to use in normal combat, were deployed. Biological agents designed to target Vraxil genetic markers were released on their boarding parties. The aliens died in agony as their cells broke down. Kinetic bombardment platforms dropped tungsten rods from orbit onto Vraxil ground positions. The rods hit with the force of nuclear weapons but without the radiation. Entire enemy bases simply ceased to exist, crushed under the impact. Most terrifying of all were the quantum phase disruptors. These weapons operated at full power now. They did not just destroy ships. They erased them from normal spacetime. Vraxil vessels hit by these weapons did not explode. They did not break apart. They simply vanished, as if they had never existed at all. Supreme War Master Dravok watched his tactical display as his grand fleet disintegrated around him. Of 200 ships, fewer than 40 remained combat-capable. His command vessel was surrounded by human warships, any one of which could destroy him at will. He had led his forces into a massacre. For the first time in his 60 years of military service, Dravok understood what it meant to be completely outmatched. These humans were not lucky. They were not desperate. They were professionals executing a battle plan with terrifying efficiency. They had been holding back their true capabilities, and he had walked into their trap with arrogant confidence. Admiral Stone opened a direct channel to Dravok's ship. The human's face appeared on the Vraxil command screen, and his expression was hard but not cruel. He looked tired, like someone who had done a difficult job that gave him no pleasure. Supreme War Master Dravok, this ends now. You came here expecting an easy conquest. You found something else entirely. I am going to explain something to you, and I hope you are smart enough to understand it. Stone paused, gathering his thoughts. Humanity developed weapons like these after we fought a terrible war among ourselves. We learned what unrestricted warfare looks like. We learned what happens when civilized rules break down, and survival becomes the only goal. It was the darkest period in our history. Billions died. Our world burned. When we reached the stars, we made a choice. We would be better than that. We would be peaceful, diplomatic, and restrained. We would only show force when absolutely necessary. We built these weapons and then hid them away, hoping we would never need to use them. You forced us to remember what we can do when threatened with extinction. Dravok listened in silence. He was beginning to understand the magnitude of his error. The humans had not been weak. They had been civilized, choosing restraint over violence. The Vraxil attack had stripped away that civilized veneer and revealed something far more dangerous underneath. Stone continued. I am offering you terms one final time. Immediate cessation of hostilities. Complete withdrawal from human space. Establishment of a demilitarized zone between our territories. In exchange, we will provide medical aid to your wounded and allow your surviving ships to leave intact. You have 1 hour to accept. After that, we demonstrate weapons that make everything you have seen so far look primitive by comparison. If you think I am bluffing, ask yourself this question. If we are willing to show you these weapons, what are we still keeping hidden? What capabilities have we not revealed yet? Do you really want to find out? Dravok looked at his senior officers. They were defeated men, broken by a battle they had expected to win easily. Some were injured, others looked shell-shocked. None of them wanted to continue fighting. The choice should have been easy, but it was not. Accepting these terms meant admitting total defeat. It meant returning to the Dominion in disgrace. The High Council might execute him for losing so badly. His family would be shamed. Everything he had built over his long career would be destroyed. Before Dravok could respond, his sensor officer called out one more time. War Master, new contact. Single ship. It is enormous, larger than anything I have ever seen. It is not Vraxil and it is not human. It is broadcasting on all frequencies. Admiral Stone saw it too. His expression changed from determination to something like concern. This was a new player, an unknown factor entering an already complex situation. The message came through in perfect English and in the Vraxil language. This is the arbitration vessel Eternal Accord, representing the Galactic Assembly. We have been monitoring this conflict. Both parties are ordered to cease hostilities immediately and prepare for diplomatic negotiations. Refusal will result in Assembly intervention. Stone and Dravok both stared at their screens. The galaxy, it seemed, had been watching, and now it wanted to have a say in how this ended. On the horizon, Commander Daniel Hayes watched the massive alien vessel appear. His ship was still damaged from the earlier attack, but his crew had managed to get most systems back online. Karen Webb was working frantically at her communication station. Commander, I am receiving data bursts from that ship. They are sending information about something called the Galactic Assembly. It appears to be a coalition of dozens of alien species. They have been observing humanity for decades. Daniel felt a chill run down his spine. Humanity was not alone in the galaxy, and apparently they never had been. The Vraxil were just one species among many, and now all of them knew what humans were capable of when pushed to the edge. The arbitration vessel Eternal Accord was unlike anything humans or Vraxil had ever seen. It was not built for war. It was built for presence, for making a statement. The ship was 5 kilometers long and covered in structures that might have been buildings or temples. It broadcast calm authority just by existing. Ambassador Trell represented the Galactic Assembly. His species, the Meridians, were one of the oldest civilizations in known space. They had been exploring the galaxy when humanity's ancestors were still living in caves. Trell had seen many wars, many species rise and fall. But this situation troubled him deeply. Both Admiral Stone and Supreme War Master Dravok received the same message. They were invited to neutral ground aboard the Eternal Accord for immediate negotiations. Refusal was not really an option. When the Galactic Assembly demanded your presence, you came. Governor Helen Burke joined the human delegation, along with Ambassador Gregory Pierce. They represented different aspects of humanity, military power and diplomatic tradition. The Vraxil brought High Consul Vractus, a political overseer who outranked even Dravok. His presence indicated how seriously the Dominion was taking this situation. The meeting room aboard the Eternal Accord was beautiful and intimidating. The walls showed stars and nebulae, as if they were floating in space itself. Ambassador Trell sat at the head of a long table, his ancient eyes studying the humans and Vraxil with careful attention. The Galactic Assembly has observed this conflict with growing concern, Trell began. His voice was soft but carried authority. We must now address several uncomfortable truths that will shape the galaxy's future. He turned his gaze to the Vraxil first. High Consul Vractus, your species has pursued an aggressive expansion policy for 2 centuries. You have conquered 19 other civilizations. The Assembly has tolerated this because you operated within acceptable parameters. But you made a critical error. You attacked humanity without understanding what they were. Vractus started to speak, but Trell raised a hand for silence. We knew about Earth we have known for over a century. We observed their development, their wars, their technology. The Assembly debated whether to make contact, but decided against it. Do you know why? The question hung in the air. Finally, Trell answered it himself. Because humanity frightened us. Their psychological profile was unlike any species we had encountered. They are persistence hunters, evolved to chase prey until it collapses from exhaustion. They form complex social groups and cooperate in ways that should be impossible. Most concerning, they are adaptable. They learn from every challenge, every conflict, every mistake. Ambassador Gregory Pierce listened with growing understanding. You knew about us but stayed away. You let the Vraxil attack us, why? Trell's expression was difficult to read, but something like regret showed in his eyes. Some factions within the Assembly believed humanity represented a potential threat to galactic stability. When the Vraxil expressed interest in your territory, certain parties encouraged them. It was seen as a test. If you were easily conquered, the problem would solve itself. If you fought back, we would learn about your capabilities. You used us as bait, Admiral Stone said quietly. His voice was calm, but there was anger underneath. You let the Vraxil kill our people to see what would happen. Yes, Trell admitted, and now the Assembly must deal with the consequences of that decision. You demonstrated military capabilities that rival our most advanced members. You revealed technologies that some of us did not believe were possible, and you did it while showing remarkable restraint given the circumstances. Commander Daniel Hayes, participating via holographic link from the horizon, spoke up. You talk about restraint, but you let this war start. You could have prevented all of this by making contact peacefully, by integrating us into your galactic community. Instead, you watched us fight and die. You are correct, Trell acknowledged. The Assembly made mistakes. But those mistakes cannot be undone. We must now decide how to move forward. The galaxy is watching this negotiation. The decisions made here will echo for generations. Defense Minister Claire Sutton leaned forward. Let me be clear about humanity's position. We did not want this war. We offered peace repeatedly. We showed restraint even when it cost us lives. But we will not be bullied by the Vraxil or manipulated by the Assembly. We have earned our place at this table through blood and sacrifice. High Consul Vractus finally spoke. His voice carried the weight of someone who had seen his nation's power broken. The Dominion acknowledges its defeat. We underestimated humanity catastrophically. Our expansion policies clearly need reconsideration. But we will not accept humiliating terms. We are still a powerful empire. Not as powerful as you were 3 days ago, Captain Jake Morrison commented from his position in the human delegation. You lost most of your Grand Armada. Your military prestige is shattered. Other species you have conquered will see your weakness. Some of them might seek independence. You are in no position to make demands. The negotiations continued for 3 days. The atmosphere was tense with centuries of potential galactic policy hanging in the balance. Both sides made arguments, threatened consequences, and slowly worked toward a compromise that all parties could accept. The final agreement became known as the Proxima Accords. The terms were complex, but the essentials were clear. Humanity would be granted full membership in the Galactic Assembly, with all associated rights and protections. No species could attack Earth or its colonies without facing the combined military might of the entire assembly. The Vraxil Dominion would pay reparations for the unprovoked attack. They would cede 3 border systems to human control as a buffer zone. Most importantly, their expansion policies would be subject to assembly oversight. No more unrestricted conquests. In exchange, humanity agreed to limitations on deploying their most advanced weapon systems outside their territory. Independent assembly observers would verify compliance. It was a compromise that neither side loved but both could live with. The most significant part of the agreement was what it meant for the future. Humanity now had access to galactic trade networks, advanced technologies, and mutual defense treaties. Any future aggression against Earth would trigger a response from dozens of allied species. Supreme War Master Dravok sat in his damaged command ship, reviewing the terms one final time before signing. His career was effectively over. He would return home in disgrace. But at least he was returning alive, and he had learned a valuable lesson. Never underestimate a species based on their public capabilities. What you see might only be what they choose to show you. On Earth, the news of the Proxima Accords was met with mixed reactions. Some celebrated humanity's entry into the galactic community. Others worried about the compromises and restrictions. But everyone agreed on one thing. Humanity had proven itself. They were no longer alone in the universe, and they were no longer defenseless. Ambassador Trell had a final private conversation with Admiral Stone before the delegations dispersed. The ancient alien looked tired, as if this whole situation had aged him considerably. You should know that humanity's emergence has fundamentally changed the galaxy's power structure, Trell said quietly. Other species will now compete to form alliances with you. Your technology, your adaptability, your military strength, all of these make you valuable allies. But not everyone will welcome you. There are ancient civilizations that view any potential rival with suspicion. Some may even see you as a threat that must be eliminated before you grow too powerful. Stone considered this carefully. Are you warning us or threatening us? Warning, Trell replied firmly. The Assembly wants humanity to succeed. Your presence forces us to confront our own fears and prejudices. But you must understand that the galaxy is vast and old. There are powers out there that make the Vraxil look like children playing with toys. Some of them have been watching your species for a very long time. This war was your introduction to galactic politics. What comes next will be far more complicated. Commander Daniel Hayes piloted the Horizon back toward Earth. His ship was battered and scarred but still flying. The crew was exhausted but alive. Karen Webb sat at her communications station, monitoring the new galactic networks they now had access to. The amount of information flowing through space was overwhelming. Commander, I am receiving messages from dozens of different species. Trade offers, diplomatic requests, scientific exchanges. Everyone wants to talk to humanity now. Daniel smiled slightly. We certainly made an impression. Let Earth Command sort through all that. Our job is to get home and get this ship repaired. He looked out at the stars, thinking about everything that had happened. Humanity had been alone in the universe, or so they thought. Now they were part of something bigger. A galactic community with all its opportunities and dangers. Paul Henderson, the chief engineer, joined him on the bridge. Think we will ever go back to being peaceful explorers? Or is this it now? Are we warriors first and everything else second? I don't know, Daniel admitted. But I think we proved something important. We showed that humanity prefers peace, but we are very, very good at war when necessary. Maybe that is enough. Maybe other species will think twice before attacking us. Maybe we bought ourselves time to grow, to learn, to become something better.